Okay, students, today we are going to finish this sheet that we've been working on for the Populist Party. We're going to be doing the second part of the video covering this part of the worksheet. And the bottom, this part of the worksheet. We finished the other parts yesterday. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about a court case. It's Munn versus Illinois. I'm not going to give you all the details of this court case, but what you need to know to understand its impact on the populist movement. Okay, so let me get this situated. Okay, all right, here we go. So the court case starts off Munn versus Illinois. Anytime you see a name v. name, this is a court case. Okay, so in a nutshell. States, this court case, the result of the decision was states should be able to regulate business entering their state from another state. So what this is saying is the state should control the rules and the regulations regarding trade coming in from another state, that the state should be, that it's coming into, should be allowed to control it. Okay? But it goes to the Supreme Court. In Washington, D.C., this was in Springfield, Illinois. This one here is going to be in Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court of the country, okay, the federal court. So, Munn versus Illinois, overturned by the Supreme Court, only Congress can regulate business between the states. And that's federalism. So, what this is saying is if there's trade going on within the state controls that, the rules. But if it crosses state lines, it's the federal government that controls the regulation of business. Okay? So, and this actually leads to the Interstate Commerce Act, 1887. The law says that any business crossing state lines is regulated by the federal government. Okay? And so this ultimately leads to, if you have a law that says the federal government regulates, well then now you're going to need buildings with people in it that work for the agency that's going to enforce these laws, and that's going to be the Interstate Commerce Commission. This is the agency that crosses business, that crosses state lines. It's the first of its kind, okay, regulating interstate commerce. Now remember, interstate, like Interstate 10, it crosses from Florida into Alabama, into Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, all the way to California. So if it crosses from state to state like Interstate 10 does, it's interstate. Business, commerce means business. So business that crosses state lines is controlled by the ICC, Interstate Commerce Commission. Okay? Now, let's quickly see these questions down at the bottom. Okay, so would a small business owner or worker, how would they view this government regulations? Of course, remember the populist, the party, they were fighting for fair rates for small farmers, railroad rates for shipping. And so they're going to like this because they know that the federal government now can control and regulate prices even that crosses state lines. Okay? So small businesses love the ICC. They like the idea of the ICC regulating because they believe it will help make them more competitive with the larger businesses. Okay? And how about the large businesses? How will they feel about the ICC, Interstate Commerce Commission? Big business owners do not like the government regulation because they believe it prevents them from making profit and they have less control over making profit or their business decision making. Okay, so but sometimes small people want more government. Sometimes the big, powerful want smaller government because of just control over business. Okay, all right. So you can pause the video and update this if you wish. I'm going to move on to the other side of the page that we have left. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the reading. Let's wrap up this section of the reading, okay, that we haven't done yet. Okay, so we left off here yesterday. All right. So during the presidential election of 1896, the Democratic political party uses several of the same ideas put forward by the Populists. William Jennings Bryan is the presidential candidate for the Democrats. He promises to enact all of the reforms. Remember, reforms are changes through laws and regulations above, including removing the gold standard. In a speech, Williams Jennings Bryan famously shouted that American labor would not wear a crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. As you can tell, he sounds really religious there, which he was. In fact, we're going to learn in the 1920s, he will be the attorney who is prosecuting a teacher by the name of Scopes, who was teaching evolution in class. He's going to be the lawyer for the state of Tennessee, which is, he's promoting creationism being taught in the classroom. So that makes sense that he would be religious and also the lawyer who prosecuted the teacher in the Scopes monkey trial for teaching evolution. Okay? So his name will come up again later in the year. Well, he's the Democrat who adopts populist ideas, all the issues that we listed in yesterday's assignment. So, but nevertheless, this happens. Republican candidate William McKinley supported the gold standard. See, he wanted money to be backed by gold to show its value. Many of the large monopolies gave money to McKinley's campaign with major support from banks and industry. McKinley won the election, defeating Bryan. The Populist Party eventually came to an end, but the ideas and reforms the Populists fought to achieve lived on. Okay? So let's go ahead and fill in the question on the back side regarding this election. Where did I put it? Here. All right, so here are the questions we haven't finished from yesterday. All right, so let's go ahead and summarize the election of 1896. Of course, this was between Williams Jennings Bryan primarily and McKinley. So William Jennings Bryan, the Democrat, ran as a Democrat and adopted the Populist Party's ideas, which is the platform, their ideas that they're fighting for, but still lost the election to Republican McKinley, who fought for the gold standard. You can add that on there. Okay? All right, so let's talk about a third party. Of course, in this election, you have the Democrats, Republican, and the Populists. The third party effect is rather interesting. This is what we have. When there's a third party, which is a party that's not a Republican or a Democrat, the third party can cause the party most like them to lose. So the Democrats and the Populists were more alike, so they shared the votes. And so even if you add them together, they have more votes than the Republican. They lose because they shared the votes. So the Republican who has less votes than the other two added up still wins. Okay? So a third party is not Republican nor Democrat. A third party can cause the party most like them to lose. Let's put the word 2 in there. Okay? Because they share votes. The party least like them usually wins. And we're going to see throughout the school year that this is going to happen several times during elections. So third parties are a threat to Republican and Democrat, because especially if they're like them, if they have similar ideas, because they're going to share votes and the other side will win. Okay? All right, so that's the third party and the effect that it can have on an election. Even though the Populist Party was unsuccessful in national elections, how was the government influenced because of the Populist Party? Well, here's some ideas. Of course, the Populist Party, they're gone, but their legacy lives on through the passage of the 16th Amendment. That's the graduated income tax. The more you make, the more they take, and this is to pay for programs to solve problems in society. The 17th Amendment is the direct election of senators. We now vote directly for our senators instead of having our state Congress vote for us. That gives us more people power. Okay? And, voting power to the people, popular sovereignty. Okay? No one has power until we've elected them, but we've give them consent to be in that position. Okay? And then we have the Interstate Commerce Commission is created, which regulates business that crosses state lines. So that has been created. 8-hour workdays, secret ballots, And we'll be talking about referendums, initiatives, and recalls in a later lesson. But ultimately, the populists gave Americans more control over the government through voting. Can I squeeze it in? Okay, through the process of voting. So we vote for our own senators now, and then we can have referendums, which is voting, initiatives, which is voting, recalls, which are voting, and we'll talk about that in a later lesson. But they gave Americans more control over the government through voting primarily. Okay, so more people power. That concludes the lesson for the Populist Party. And tomorrow we will start the progressive presidents: Theodore Roosevelt, William Taft, and Woodrow Wilson. Thank you for watching. Please tape this in your notebook when you're done.